Hi, this is the voiceover for Alexander Calder for Wolftrap's AIM program. This is going to walk you through the slides and the accompanying speaker notes. Those will also be in the cards, so you can read off from the notes or just use presenter view when you are presenting the material to the kids. Let's go. Welcome to our fourth session of Wolftrap's Artist in the Making program. Have any of you been here? Does anybody know what this building is? This is the East Building of the National Gallery of Art right here in DC. If you've been, did you look up and notice this giant hanging metal sculpture? It's a mobile. There's no motor, it moves and rotates just with airflow. It's one of 26 works of art on display there from the artists we will be studying today. Any guesses who the artist is? This month's artist is Alexander Calder. Here's a photograph of him while he was living and working in Paris. We're continuing through history with our AIM artists. Who remembers the first artist we studied this year from back in the early 1500s? Yep, that was Michelangelo. Then we studied Degas, who painted most of his works in the 1860s. Do you remember who we studied last month? Dufy, who was creating during the first half of the 1900s. Alexander Calder, who went by the nickname Sandy, was about 20 years younger than Dufy. He was also born here in the States, in Pennsylvania. Calder was most famous for creating art that moves, which we call kinetic art. He was very active during the same time period as Picasso, who we studied last year. Does anybody know what abstract means when we're talking about art? Abstract art typically has shapes and colors, but isn't aiming to be realistic. This is very different from when we studied Michelangelo, who strived to create the most accurate and realistic artwork of humans. Calder was born into an artistic family. His father was a sculptor and his mother a painter. He created the metal dog and duck shown here as a Christmas gift for his parents when he was just 11. Despite all of this early exposure to art and a love for creating, he actually went to college and studied engineering. After several unrelated jobs, he committed to art, moved to New York, and enrolled in art school at the age of 25. While in New York, Calder was first hired as an artist to provide sketches of sporting events for a local newspaper. One of his assignments was to create illustrations of the circus when it came to town for 2 weeks. He was mesmerized by the action. Not long after, Calder moved to Paris and created a miniature circus made primarily of wire, which he continued to expand upon for over 5 years. Many of the figures moved, and he would do performances of this circus. If we have time at the end today, we will read Sandy's Circus, a beautiful book about Calder's life. In addition to the circus, Calder created many different types of wire sculpture, including wire portraits, as shown here. On the left is his representation of Josephine Baker, and on the right is a wire sculpture called Medusa. Back in 1931, when he was in Paris, Calder visited the studio workshop of Piet Mondrian, a Dutch artist who was living in Paris at the time. He was enthralled by the bold colors and shapes, and this influenced his work immediately. On the right, you can see one of Mondrian's paintings. Calder combined his passion for wireworking with his new interest in abstract art to invent the mobile. These are moving sculptures. The one on the right is called Steel Fish, and he made it in 1934. In the late 1930s and 1940s, Calder also began creating stabiles, stationary abstract sculptures and large-scale works of art. These two are both made of sheet metal, bolts, and paint. The one on the right, titled Big Bird, is over 7 feet tall. Calder later created huge mobiles and stabiles for public spaces, like the one we saw earlier in the photo of the National Gallery of Art. So today, we're going to create an abstract mobile of our own, like one of these on the left. As a sample, here's an abstract mobile that Calder created right on the right. The materials you're going to need are a wood block for the base, 1 heavy-duty wire to act as your hanger, 2 to 3 pieces of thin wire, some cardstock to create your shapes with, some paint for the base, which we'll have over in a paint station in the corner, and there will be newsprint over there to work on and for the drying area. You're going to need scissors, a dowel for bending the wire, a hole punch will be one per table, and then there'll be paintbrushes over in the painting area. So the first thing we're going to do is stick the large wire into the block base, and you may need to push it in and rotate it a little bit to get it in there. Then you're going to cut out 3 or 4 small abstract shapes. So again, they don't have to be a perfect shape. You're looking for something that's more organic. And rather than thinking of a diamond or a square, think about shapes with curves. And then you're going to punch a hole in each of those. Then you'll use that dowel to bend wire loops at each end of the thin wire pieces. Attach the cardstock, and then add a central loop to help the whole thing balance. We're going to go through the first making of a loop one by one so that everybody knows how to do this and can make the rest of their mobile. And we'll be helping you as you go along. Feel free to raise your hands if you have any questions.